Hey all, welcome to another episode of Sportslandia. It's Brian Slack and Ray Bradley, brought to you by the Next Professional Athlete platform. Yep, here we
There it
go.
is. There it is.
We
Look at
wrap
that.
all the way around now. Uh, Somewhat professional for once.
Somewhat.
Somewhat professional.
That's the
Uh,
new vibe.
yeah. It's been a couple weeks. We'll be recapping a little bit of the NFL draft, talking NBA playoffs. WNBA season has just started, so we'll briefly talk about that. Maybe a little bit
Yes.
of Not the Onion headlines, little nerd corner. We'll see how we're feeling throughout the
Full
entire
show.
process.
Full show. Let's get it going.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it. The NFL draft a couple weeks ago. I know we both had our eyes on it. We had top 3 picks, both of us.
Yeah.
I had 2 top 10 picks.
Starting with you, number 1. What'd you think? Caitlyn Williams. Shocking.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knew that Caleb Williams was going number 1. I want to say that I predicted that months ago.
It was a coin flip. Him or J.J. McCarthy. I think you
Yeah.
ended up on the right side.
Of course. Well, you never know. The Bears love to take that local kid, and he is from just outside of Chicago.
That is true.
No, they took Caleb Williams. Super thrilled about that. And, I mean, if you watch back on a couple of our episodes, it's no surprise I was a little hesitant to lean that way originally.
Yeah.
But I think it's the right move. And everything that I've heard about him, like his character, his play from former coaches, teammates, even just players who have never actually played with him but have been watching from afar, everything seems so positive. I'm thrilled. I just want to see how this plays out. Now, this is the same mistake that I've jumped into 2 times in the last 8 years. With Mitchell and with Justin. So
you're in a much better starting point with this one.
100%. I mean, this is the best starting point, I think, for any number 1 draft pick to kind of go into. You got 3 quality wide receivers.
Yeah.
You've got a receiving back in DeAndre Swift who can also break some ankles. You can trust Roshan to back him up as well. Cole Kmet is a security blanket.
Cole Kmet. Don't leave out Cole Kmet.
You can't, dude. Like
You know all the graphics. It's so funny, actually.
Oh, he's always like the last one.
Look at this offense. Cole Kmet.
They do have a tight end, don't they?
Okay. They actually paid him, too. All right.
And they actually paid him a lot of money. It's rare that the Bears, over the last 10 years, actually retain a player that they drafted. And they did that with Cole.
It's true.
And Cole, he actually showed up at the end of last year. He had a couple of big games. Hey,
this was not concerning to the Cole Kmet segment.
It's not.
I apologize.
I'm just saying. But, like, the defense is in a good spot.
Yes.
Like, Caleb and the Bears have set themselves up to be in a good position. Now, you still have their games. The schedule just came out. But as for the initial draft reactions, I know every analyst and whatnot gave the Bears an A+, which is always a crap shoot. You don't know until 3 years later.
It's a snapshot, yeah. But, I mean, they picked up Roma Dunze as well with that second pick there, and it kind of bolster that receiving line as well. It seems like the real only question there now is, can that line hold up enough for him to get the ball to all those guys kind of thing? That's kind of the only question mark left.
The biggest question mark was center. And I don't think they necessarily addressed that. But they did. They drafted a tackle that they think can swing on both sides and possibly move in at guard, which always means one of those guards could move over to center.
Yeah,
but
that versatility is always helpful.
Yeah, and that's always been trouble for the Bears the last few years is getting a good center. We had a backup center that they pulled from Green Bay, and he just kept knuckleballing it backwards, and nobody knew where that snap was going. That's
You're still long snapping.
Yeah, right. But enough about the Bears. Your team picked 3rd overall. They got Drake May. They also picked up Polk, the other wide receiver from Washington. I know that wasn't a 1st round pick, but I liked that pick for New England. What are your thoughts on the draft of the Patriots?
I did too. I was happy. So the thing that kind of determined where we were going at 3 was what was Washington going to do at 2. They did end up going what people kind of assumed they would, which is the Jaden Daniels route, RG3 2.0 kind of thing. So we'll kind of see how that goes. He did scare me a little more just because his play style and kind of slight frame. So getting Drake May at 3, considering all during the season, it was always Caleb Williams, Drake May, who's going to go there? And then we kind of beat Washington in the regular season. I thought that would screw us out of potentially getting one of those top guys. So he still falls up to us here anyways. It's exciting. And getting Polk there as well. Seems like a good guy. Played with Penix in Washington. We could use all the receivers, so I'm not going to say no. They were both at the Bruins game like a couple nights ago in the crowd with the Bruins jerseys on. So it's already starting to kind of come together. It feels like.
You get enduring to the fans, or endearing to the
Yeah,
fans.
it's a problem. So yeah, I was happy. I still was kind of harboring a little Marvin Harrison Jr. love there, but my whole thing with that was, well, you can take Marvin Harrison Jr. and then you can get Michael Penix or Bo Nix in the late second, probably.
Nope.
No, that turns out that would have not been the case. So I think I am glad, because if we had come out with just Marvin Harrison and I don't even
No
know who, like, we took the quarterback in the 6th round. Like, if that had been the only other guy we had, we would have been in trouble. So I'm happy to take the blue chip quarterback and kind of juggle at receiver still, because, yeah, the other two guys that we thought maybe would fall or weren't in that top echelon, boy, did they jump up the draft pretty quick.
Yeah, I was going to say that was kind of one of the biggest storylines of the first round. The first 14 picks were all offensive, and all 6 of the top quarterbacks went in the top 12
Yeah.
picks. And most surprising, it was Michael Penix, who went number 8 overall to Atlanta.
And it's the team that is so surprising. Like,
yeah, it's just because they signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. What, a couple weeks earlier? For the most
summer,
part?
yeah, it's so bizarre.
They said, hey, listen, like, if we like a quarterback, we might take one. But I don't think he was expecting them to take it at 1-8. If something fell to you in the 3rd or 4th round and you liked a quarterback, because once you get into those later rounds, like, almost everybody's a flyer. Like, the differences is kind of minuscule.
So, the chances of it working go down and down and down. So
yeah, so it's just like,
take some shots.
Put a stab at it later, fine. But I think for Atlanta, it's just puzzling. It sounded like the GM and the owner both really loved Penix during the workouts, and thought that he could be their guy going forward.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, one or the other you can do. You can go sign Kirk Cousins and then compete for now. Or you can love Penix and so don't give Cousins $100 million. Like, the GM was quoted as saying, like, oh, this would still be a great pick, even if Penix doesn't play for 4 to 5 years. It's like, what are you talking? Like, the rookie contracts, how important those are. It's you're paying that guy a lot of money now. He's probably one of the most expensive backups in the league, basically, based on where he was drafted. It's and this GM has basically the last 4 or 5 years has picked offense in the top 10 every single year, and they don't have a ton of shit. Like, they've got Drake London, they picked Bijan, even though they had Algier averaging 5 yards a carry. That they picked Kyle Pitts, we're still waiting for that to happen.
It's been like 3 years now. Yeah.
And then you sign a quarterback, and then you draft a quarterback. It's like, and their defense is like atrocious. So I don't know what they're doing. I've heard a lot of people try to defend it, obviously, because this was the big news. This was the big shocker. This is when the draft got drunk officially. So plenty of people were kind of taking sides on it, and I've not really heard a coherent defense for why they would do it. It does not make any sense to me. It's going to blow up in that GM's face, I would assume.
I was puzzled by the pick, for sure. And then I realized that basically anybody that was part of the Bears regime, the last couple of regimes, has gone down to Atlanta. So I'm not, like, totally surprised that this is ass backwards for them. Their assistant GM was the Bears GM before Ryan Poles, excuse me. Ryan Pace, who is now in Atlanta. And so it's just, I'm not totally surprised that there were no, we're taking this guy, whatever.
I just don't get the reasoning.
That I dealt with it for so long and realizing that the running joke in Chicago has become that Atlanta is Chicago South, because anybody that the Bears had on their roster and didn't resign basically just moved down to Atlanta, where the previous GM who drafted them is like, oh, I'll give you another contract. Sure.
I'm going to stay in it. I'm going to prove it.
Exactly. But yeah, it's just like, what is wrong with that organization? Like, it seems like there's too many talking heads with them, and they can't all get on the same page on what they want. And that sort of started with, I don't want to blame Arthur Smith, but I feel like it also falls in part of the previous head coach too. Like, you have a say in who you're going to be drafting, and it seemed like you had an idea of how you wanted to use them, but clearly could not execute it. And that's led to your firing. I mean, how do you have I would say two of the more explosive players of their position coming out. It was Kyle Pitts at tight end
Yeah.
and John Robinson at running back. And yet you
Yeah.
can't get any production to your tight end who you could basically split out wide. Probably like another Kelsey. I'm not saying as productive, but just like
Yes.
he's got the body,
That body type.
Exactly. And then you got Bijan Robinson, who we saw flashes last year of what type of plays he can make if you give him the ball.
Yeah.
That didn't happen very often.
No, and I mean it just I don't understand the reasoning of a lot of these picks. Like when they drafted Bijan, it's like great player, awesome player, wasn't really a position of need, and it's very odd in the draft to do it. And it's the same thing again with the Penix thing. It's like not a position of need, and also I can kind of get it to an extent of like they're trying to pretend like this is Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, the Packers model, but this player specifically is not a player to wait a couple of years on. He's not raw. He's older. He's 24 already. He's had major injuries already. So this is not a guy that you're developing and sitting for a couple of years. This was one of the guys we thought would come in and play and probably have a good chance of having good career, good numbers, and then maybe that falls off because he's a little older and has some injuries. But to sit him for 2-3 years makes just no sense to me. I don't understand the reasoning. I can't understand the reasoning. So yeah, that's still almost a month later is like the weirdest thing that happened in the draft. I think nothing comes close. Even the next quarterback who went kind of too high still doesn't compare.
Oh yeah, Bo Nix going to the Broncos. I want to say one more thing before we transition off of that though. It's interesting. You bring up a great point that Penix has had 2 different ACL surgeries, and Kirk Cousins coming off his Achilles. There's no guarantee that Kirk Cousins is going to be the same Kirk Cousins after coming back from that Achilles injury. Like pushing off of the foot and throwing, you're going to have to deal with some pain. And as you get healthier, it gets less painful, obviously. But like, there's still going to be, in the back of your mind, that's going to be there. Just slow process of getting back to where you once were. I don't know,
which was going 8-8 and losing in the first round of the playoffs.
It's not like you were blowing the doors off a competition or anything else like that.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Cousins guy in general, but yeah, it's still weird.
Is there concern about re-injury? Like now you've got 2 guys that
it's
older, who just suffered a serious injury, and you expect them to not get hurt maybe at least once over the next 4 years. Like as an aging guy, you're going to get hit, and those bumps and bruises are going to take longer to heal.
Yep.
And it's just like you're asking for trouble you signed a guy who just came off a torn Achilles, and then you're drafting a guy with 2 ACLs that have been repaired, and most likely that might happen again.
You'd think if you're taking a chance on the health of one of your guys, you'd want the other guy to be like, okay, well, at least if he goes down, he's going to be here. And it's like, no, this is just another guy that might get hurt. Like I can't find any avenue where it makes sense to me, really.
No, I can't either. It's sort of baffling, their decision making.
And I feel bad for him because it's like he's not going to play for 2 years now, so we're not going to know. He's not going to have a real chance. Like
that's a great point because I felt the same way about Mitchell Trubisky. It's like, you're a victim of where you got drafted. Like he didn't.
Yes.
To go there. He didn't want to go there. He got thrusted into that position because that team decided to take him in that spot. And so, like, there's all these expectations that went on to Mitchell, and
he had to start early. Like that's the perfect guy who should have sat 2 full years. Like he played a season in North Carolina or something. Like
1 year.
I could have done the Jordan Love thing on. Like
he played 1 year. He played 1 year, and then he sat behind a guy that didn't even get drafted. And he sat behind a guy for 2 years that didn't even get drafted and play a single snap in the NFL, but you can only play 1 year in college. Anyways,
so as a player like that, I kind of understand. Even like a Jaden Daniels, maybe they could convince me to sit and watch, but it doesn't make any sense.
So I mean, he's got 4 years.
He does. Start. He does. So I couldn't even really be convinced of that.
Yeah. Speaking of the other quarterback, you brought up Bo Nix. The Raiders were trying to sit back and wait, and they were hoping that maybe Penix was going to fall to them at 13. That never happened. Then the Broncos in the same division just stayed put at 12, let Bo Nix kind of come right to him, and took him at 12 right in front of their divisional rival. And Sean Payton was really high on this. Sean Payton had some big words for Bo Nix that I think are going to be tough to live up to.
This whole Patrick Mahomes thing that he keeps saying is so absurd. Like first to say, "Oh yeah, I was going to draft Patrick Mahomes. I was totally going
Everybody
to
can
do
say
it
that.
if they didn't if they took one right before us, but I totally would have done it. I saw it." And then to double down and be like, "That's why I took Bo Nix because he reminds me of the Patrick Mahomes pick." And I'm like, dude, what are you? Like you're already. And also, it's like they could have waited 20 picks and the guy probably still would have been there. Honestly, like I talk
No,
about
I'm
trade
sure
down
the Raiders would have picked
opportunity.
him up, but yeah.
I don't know. I ironically all the Raiders people I know and some of the stuff I saw online was like, thank God there's not a quarterback here, so we don't miss on another one. So it's like they don't seem very happy. The fans seem very happy not to even have an option because they didn't want to fuck it up again. But
Yeah.
I'm sure they would want to get somebody in there because I'm still struggling. Every time I think of the Raiders, I struggle to remember who's going to start for them
Minshew and
this year.
O'Connell. They're supposed to
Okay,
be like a quarterback ball, which I mean,
there
I
we
don't
go.
know if you really want either of them as your long-term starter going forward.
No, I don't. But
Like
but
Minshew's a
so yeah,
solid backup. Obviously, he was a game away from getting to the playoffs with the Colts last year, but
great backup.
yeah, great
But
backup.
yeah,
And
he's a
then Aiden
backup.
O'Connell is a
He might be
respectable
done.
backup.
I don't know.
Yes, I mean, like I would not call him an NFL starter. Like he
No,
he
I
was
wouldn't.
very hit
I
and
agree
miss.
on
I mean,
that.
you had the one game where he had 0 points, and then in the next game he had like 5 touchdowns in the first half.
Yeah,
So like,
you're intimately aware as the dynasty owner for him in our league, so I know you're on the dot. You're watching him, but yeah, this is at least a little better for Bo Nix. Like it is probably a reach, but whatever. If you like your guy, go for it. But at least it's like okay, well they didn't spend money on a quarterback. He's gonna play for them. Like it's everything's okay in that regard.
yeah,
So
it's smart for
it's
the
a decent
Broncos.
decent landing spot for him if he's able to figure out some stuff with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton seems to love him, so maybe it'll all work out. So that
Well,
at
with
least like fits in my brain nicely.
yeah, with what just happened with Russell Wilson, you're going to get a quarterback for 5 years on a rookie deal now. So like that helps relieve some of the cap issues of like there's totally dead cap space. You can't
That
get
is
around that
true.
with Russell
That
Wilson,
is
but like
true.
as minimal of a contract as you can get, at least you can say you have your quarterback for the next year, maybe 2 years depending on how he does. If it doesn't go
Yeah, with
well,
the
then you go draft another one or whatever, but like it's a cheap
sure.
contract. You're not going to get hurt
Yeah,
on
with
it.
the resources they have, this is their best chance to find a quarterback that could be something. So,
Yeah.
and I like Bo Nix. So there's not a dearth of weapons. Dearth,
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's the problem with Denver's. They really don't. I mean, they just traded Judy, so
Yeah,
like
who wasn't even doing that much. It's like
you
Tim
have
Patrick's coming
Portland
back. I don't know.
Sutton. Tim Patrick
Yeah,
is coming back, and then I think they also
Marvin Mims blow up here. But
the
we'll see.
yeah, one of the other things. So we talked about how Bo Nix got drafted 12. 13 though was the Raiders, and they took Brock Bowers, the star tight end that I think everybody thought was
Okay,
probably going to be
what
like
the hell?
it was going to be probably a top 10 pick, but because of the run on quarterbacks, he fell a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you could kind of just see the Raiders felt like they took the best man available, but did they forget they took a tight end high last year with Mayer?
What are they doing? Like, yeah, they've spent was Mayer a first or a second rounder last year?
I
Like they've
thought he was
spent these
first, but
like they're spending these high quality picks 2 years in a row on tight end when you have so many holes on your roster. Like I don't know what they're doing. I guess like yes, maybe he's the best available there. Maybe he's gonna work out for them. It's just so weird to me. And it's like
he was
from what they
round
said, they
2
played
pick number 35, so he was the third pick of the second round. Like that's high.
like top 40 picks on tight ends 2 years in a row. Okay, I guess you're playing two tight end personnel, or they play differently. They can play together, but it's like, why are you're not at the point where you can find a second tight end for your offense when you don't even have a quarterback and you've got all these other holes, and like it's so weird to me. So who's
Unless
throwing the ball?
the quarterback blossoms from having a couple of pieces around you, which is
On a weapon.
hard to do. Like
Yeah.
you don't hear quarterbacks just magically getting better in the league because they have pieces around them. Like they have to take it upon themselves to spend the offseason getting better and connecting with their teammates. They don't just get better because you've got good talent around them. Like as much positivity as I have for the Bears, like you realize that nothing has even happened yet. He hasn't played a single game yet, and like I feel great about Caleb Williams, but until he's out there playing a game, like I'm indifferent about it for the most part. Like I can be as excited as I want, but is he going to make the players better around him? I don't know. Or because he's got so many great players around him, is he going to do better? I don't know. Like there has to be sort of like a give and take between teammates in that aspect in a way. And I don't know if you feel the same way
Yeah,
about it or not, but like
no, definitely. But at least the Bears know they're developing their potential star of the future. The Raiders are
they don't.
they know Connell, and probably don't believe in him anymore. So I don't. It's like
Well,
a gap
Antonio
year
Pierce
where they're.
apparently believes in
Oh,
him enough, but that's your interim coach that is now your head coach, and I don't think that
yep.
usually bodes very well.
I'm usually not a big fan of the interim that just becomes the head coach, but the players coach, maybe it'll work out there. But I just I don't really get the design or the idea behind another tight end. It's like, okay, especially recently with even, there's been more people picking tight ends higher in the first, second round these last like 3 drafts. I want to say with Kyle Pitts and Kincaid and all these guys. Obviously, the only one that's really
Kelsey or
the
Gronk.
only the only one that's really popped off in recent years has been Laporta with the Lions last
Yeah.
year. Uh, they had so much already going for that team. They were just getting additive pieces and kind of like little cherries on top. You can't just get a bunch of cherries at the store if you have no cake or frosting at home.
Yeah.
You're just eating a bowl of cherries. Like, I guess people do that. I don't know.
You're
It's
the
a lot.
weirdo at that point at the party. Let me
You
tell
know,
you.
you're just spitting out the seeds and stuff. So I don't really get that one. Maybe they're just happy that they didn't have to miss another quarterback. It sounds like from the fans, but a weird one. I guess we should mention maybe
If that's how you feel as a fan base, then you might
you're
as well
pretty
try to defend
bad.
your team. Like, listen,
Yeah,
I haven't seen a competent quarterback in Chicago, but at least I wasn't like, we can't draft Caleb because we've never
yeah.
done anything.
You don't even want to try. You're so hurt. You don't even want to attempt it. Like that's oof,
What? That doesn't
that's
make any
pretty bad.
sense. Like,
I mean, Jerry Stidham, Josh McDaniels, that'll do it to you, man. I mean, last time he was on a team, he brought them Tebow, and it took a while. They had to get Peyton Manning just to recover from that. So I don't know, but we should probably mention before we move on the other quarterback taken up there, uh, JJ McCarthy to the Vikings. I
yeah,
don't know. I don't really love the guy, but maybe it'll work out. What do you think? I don't know.
I'm sort of on the fence with him.
Staying in the
He was
Midwest.
a product of his environment at Michigan, where like he wasn't asked
Yes.
to do a whole bunch.
No.
I don't feel like I'm really stating anything new here when I say that, but Minnesota needed a quarterback. They signed Sam Darnold, which I think we all knew was not going to be the permanent solution.
No.
Maybe a bridge quarterback. I bet you he probably starts like the first 3 games, and if he doesn't do well,
Yeah.
everyone's going to be calling for JJ. But like,
Yep.
I don't hate it in the sense that
And
Minnesota
this is
needed a quarterback, and that was kind of the best one that they could go with.
is it more of like a high floor pick? I guess because I don't
Yes,
see what
I would say more of a high floor than a high ceiling.
I don't see what the upside is. Like it reminds me of Mac Jones, like athletically and stuff. Like there's nothing there, but if he's in the right system and he's doing things right, you kind of get by with it. So and yeah, like you said, maybe they needed somebody back there other than Sam Darnold, and maybe he turns into something. But they can put some pieces around him. They have obviously great weapons, at least 2 of them. So
I will also
maybe.
say that I wouldn't be shocked to see Kevin O'Connell really uh, break down things for JJ. I mean, as a former quarterback in the league, he sat behind Tom Brady for the Patriots. Very quarterback friendly coach. This might be a perfect spot for JJ.
Yeah.
Because of the head coach and his knowledge of the NFL and able to break things down. I just don't know. I don't think he's going to be like a world beater by any means, but I could see him being a solid starter for 4 or 5 years. Maybe it just doesn't go exactly as planned, and he bounces around from a couple teams from there. But I don't see him as like the top quarterback in the NFC North or anything like that.
Yeah. But you're right, he does have probably a better chance than some of these other guys of sticking, at least
100%. 100%. I
throughout the
don't
league.
think Bo Nix is probably going to last
Pro-style
very long.
offense.
I don't, with Cousins in Atlanta and that whole Penix situation. Like, I don't expect Michael Penix to be there long term. So
he'll be there at least 2 years. He's just not going to play.
yeah. Well, I think we all know what happened in the last quarterback heavy draft. That Trevor Lawrence one. He's the only one that stayed with his original team so far. Everybody else has already moved.
No comment.
Any other comments about the NFL draft that happened?
Nothing too major. Obviously, just kind of keeping an eye on teams for the most part in this. and
We
you
drafted a
can't
punter. I was not happy with that.
tell for too long. I was very happy we took another receiver late in the draft, Javon Baker, who is a talker. Like, this guy's
Oh,
already got
is
some
that the
great
guy who said
quotes.
he would, like, people in wheelchairs would stand up to watch me play or something like that?
Yes, yes. That was the first call he had. That was like the first call he had with like the Patriots like beat writers or something, and they were like, "What are you gonna bring?" And he's like, "You better come to the home games. Bring your popcorn because I make people in wheelchairs stand up." Like, so I was immediately like, "I think this guy's gonna be good." Like, to have that confidence as a receiver is like one of the big steps already. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And yeah, like I said, we can always take more receivers and on the Patriots. So we'll see. But yeah, nothing else. I feel like too many. It seemed like from consensus, the Eagles were getting a lot of guys who were falling to them once again. A couple corners, I
Yeah,
believe.
how do they keep doing that? They don't even move up. It just seems like they're always drafting somebody that
it's so
is
annoying.
projected higher, but for some reason keeps falling to them. Both with the cornerback from Toledo and DeJean from Iowa.
Yeah, it happened last year too, right? Was it Jalen Carter from Georgia and stuff? So they continue to. It feels like kind of luck out, but we'll have to see what production kind of comes of those picks. So it's hard to know until then. But yeah, very offensive heavy draft. It kind of seems to be the way it's going. That's where you can get these guys.
I think we've seen it the last 5-6 years. I mean, records being broken, yardage records, touchdown records, all that over the last decade. Definitely an offensive league now. I mean, there were 24 offensive first-round picks out of 32 teams, so like very offensive heavy. And then I think majority of the defensive players were edge players, which isn't too shocking. So it's an incredibly important position when you're trying to get to the quarterback.
Chasing the quarterback.
Yeah, right. Other than that, I mean, I didn't find anything too drastic. I know there were some stories about San Francisco wanting to trade Ayuk or Debo, and then they ended up taking a receiver at 31 overall.
Yeah, which people seem to like. But yeah, nothing ended up coming of that so far.
Yeah, like I guess you could see a trade once training camp comes around, or like maybe a receiver goes down. Unfortunately, nobody wants that, obviously. But, like teams make trades when that stuff happens. So I could see San Francisco not wanting to have to pay the contract and trying to still move them. Maybe they just didn't hear anything that they liked at the time in the draft. And
I mean,
it
doesn't sound like they want to move those guys. It's just like they're in a situation where they may have had to, and they still want to sign Ayuk, but maybe it becomes a money problem at some point. So I'm sure they're trying to still kind of handle those juggles and keep everything up in the air.
What, Purdy's going into his third year now?
Yeah. God, they're going to have to pay him.
They're going
to have to pay him, aren't they? They're going to have to extend him, give him big money. I can't believe this world that we live in.
Okay, so it's a four-year deal being drafted in the 7th round. So I'm guessing after this year they were probably going to have to pay him. Because he would be going into his final year after this upcoming season.
At least talk extension, something.
So he makes nothing, dude.
I was gonna say, it's the last pick in the draft. It's probably like a million. It's probably $500K.
There's this thing in the NFL where they give you a check at the end of the year based off of your playing time and like where you're slotted and how much pay you have. So like I'm gonna try to simplify it here, but Brock Purdy was making $100 this year, and he played so well, played X amount of snaps that he ended up getting a $90 bonus because of the amount of time. It's a weird system that they had. This is the first time I'd heard about it. I didn't realize this was a thing where like
literally $90.
No. I just told you I was simplifying.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
I was just simplifing it. I was like, not even considering that he only made $100 in the season when I just said that.
Well, it's the end of the draft, It's really, it keeps decreasing.
I think the minimum is like $450,000 or something like that.
Okay.
$250,000. Excuse me.
Okay, that makes some sense. There's some player performance.
But basically, it's like tiered out. So like, Aaron Rodgers made like, again, I'm going to simplify it, $5 million this year, but he only played 4 snaps, so he got a bonus of like $4.
Right.
It was just so as little money as Purdy is making on his actual contract, he did make a decent bonus once the season was over, but he's not making a whole bunch of money. Like he made a majority of his contract off of that bonus.
That makes it.
So like San Francisco's going to have to pay him. You're going to have to pay him, Ayuk, Like, you got a couple other guys that are going to be coming up on deals too, and everybody knows that the quarterback is going to be making the most money. It's tough.
Yeah, I wonder.
Like,
I do
I feel
wonder
like
what
they're
they'll
going
do
to have
there.
to move, even though they don't want to. They're going to have
You
to
don't.
move one of them.
Do you think they would just try to find another quarterback, seeing that they just had the success with a rando? Like, I think most likely they will just extend him because he's played even better than that to an extent, especially last
What,
year. But
3 losses in the regular
there's
season?
an there's an argument to be made that they could just be like, well, see ya, we're just gonna do it again because the rest of our roster is so good that almost anybody can kind of survive in this climate with Kyle Shanahan play calling. So there's an argument to do that. I don't think they will. I think they'll re-sign Purdy. He's played a little bit above even that level, but like
I would say
they
he's
could
played
keep.
well above the 7th round level that he was drafted.
Well, yes, but it is even above like the put it slide a quarterback manager into this roster role,
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah.
like Jimmy G. Basically, he's played better than him even. Uh, so I think they will extend him, but there's certainly an argument that they don't have. They could just roll the dice again and find somebody. They could sign Gardner Minshew probably and be fine. So it's
I just
interesting.
have a hard time thinking they would do that.
I don't think they would. I don't, but there's an argument to be made that they absolutely could. They can keep spending elsewhere on the roster like they have been. I mean, they've been succeeding without paying their quarterback so far and getting stellar play out of them. I mean, they made the Super Bowl with Jimmy G, so I don't know. It's interesting. Different methods of building the team, obviously. But yeah, he's played too well. I don't think they'll actually let him go.
Any other topics you want to talk about in the NFL?
There was a draft of Tom, or not a draft, a roast of Tom Brady. I don't really want to talk about it too much, but it was, there was some stuff that came out of it. It was interesting. Kevin Hart made Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft do a shot together, which was like
Bill didn't actually do it though.
Technically I don't. He took a sip.
Okay.
He took a sip. He wasn't really looking at Kraft at all. It was icy. There was some icy stuff going
you
on.
could definitely tell there was some bad blood between those two. At least the guy was joking. He was like, it isn't the Belichick roast that was the dynasty on TV.
Yeah, which Belichick was great. There was some good stuff in there. It felt like what I was hoping that dynasty show would have been, which I watched like 2 episodes and kind of heard all the stuff about how much of a hit job it was and stopped watching. So
yeah, you really didn't need to. And it didn't even focus on like the good stuff. It was like a lot of the.
There's all the scandals, yeah. Which is like, okay, that's so. And also, like, there's been 5 America's games or whatever, and there's been plenty of documentaries about all these things. So, like, I watched 2 episodes and saw, like, maybe 2 minutes of stuff I hadn't seen before. And so I was like, I don't think that I'm going to get much out of this. But I got a lot more out of the roast because
actual life. So.
Yeah. The roast was fun just because there was a lot of people came back. It was fun. It was like a fun hangout for all the people. Nikki Glaser kind of won the whole thing. She often does. She's the best roaster on the planet. She should be hosting these things. I don't know why Jeff Ross is. I guess because that's the only thing in his career that keeps him afloat.
Roastmaster General. That's what he does. Yeah.
Thank God. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a job. But yeah, Nikki Glaser's great. Kevin Hart cursed a lot. Other than the shot thing, I didn't really care too much about him. And then it was hit and miss. It was very I don't know. A lot of these things were like not on. Like there was definitely some. A
lot of karate instructor jokes.
I didn't even know that story at all. So like when they made 1 or 2 jokes, I was like, oh, that's a thing. And then they made like 55 more jokes about it, and I was like, okay, I guess that's a thing. They really hammered that. I mean, there's not a ton of angles you can take on him. So yeah, there's a lot of divorce jokes, which I was like, Jesus, man.
Oh, speaking of divorce jokes, though, like Bledsoe, just from the top rope. It's like 2 things you're never going to feel, Tom. Being a number 1 overall draft pick, married for 28 years. Damn.
Yeah. That was Bledsoe is
a good sport,
interesting.
You know, like for a guy who I wouldn't say his career was defined by Brady coming in, because obviously he had a good career before Brady. And listen, you get linked with him because Tom Brady took over your position, but like it's not like he had a bad career after he left New England. Like he went to Buffalo, he went to Dallas, had a couple of good seasons.
Yes,
like it's not like he was written off forever. Obviously, you're not winning 6 Super Bowls like Tom Brady. So like that's how
he made a Super Bowl before that. Like he did, but that will be the first line in his Wikipedia page forever, probably. Um,
100%. I can't disagree with
but
that.
you could tell he loved being like, yeah, I was the number one pick and you weren't. Like he really relished saying that the 2 times that he was able to. So
Well, he had to get
good
it
for
in.
him.
It was the roast of Tom Brady. At least he was like
Good for him.
cool enough to go to the roast, though. Like I don't know what his
Yeah,
relationship is with Brady, but you got to be
he seems like a
somewhat
pretty good sport
friendly to
about.
like still go to do that thing.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty good sport about the whole thing. But uh, yeah, it was interesting to see the Netflix live event and all that. But yeah, it was funny. I was getting all the notifications from like different like Bleacher Report and ESPN stuff about this roast that was going on. Like, oh, you'll never believe what they said here or here. So it was a good time. But yeah, I don't know.
Then there's the
It was all right.
aftermath. Tom saying that it's affected his children, which, I mean,
Yeah, they made 50 divorce jokes about the karate instructor. I don't
yeah,
know if he was expecting that many.
no, but
So
it's a roast, so
yeah, I
what
don't
did
know
you
what he.
expect? Like, it's not like there was
Same.
going to be stuff that was shared that wasn't already known, I guess, a little bit, or like rumored in some random stuff. Like, just
Yeah.
kind of gotta
The
Google
only
it
time he.
yourself, I guess.
The
It's just like I
yeah,
find it hard to believe
very
that
weird.
like your kids would not have known some of this, or like I don't know. It's just I
Yeah.
I think it was a little weird that he said it like that. But that's just me.
Yeah, yeah. The only time I guess he like you could tell he didn't want. It's hard to know if it was like staged or not, but Jeff Rouse made a joke about the craft massage, and he like got up and was like, "Don't make that joke again." I was like, "Okay, yeah." So it was an experience. We'll see if they do more of those, but it was interesting to say the least.
All right, let's move over to some round ball topics. NBA
Yeah,
playoffs are going on right now. We were originally supposed to record on Monday, so my notes are a little off right now. But both the
yeah.
Pacers
Everything was tied up when we were supposed to talk, and some
and
things have
now it's not.
happened.
Yeah, so the Pacers and Nuggets are both down 0-2 at the time, and then came back and tied up the series. And since then, the Nuggets have taken a 3-2 lead over the Timberwolves, which I think a lot of people, when they were down 2-0, realized, oh, the Timberwolves are for real. Anthony
Yeah,
Edwards is no joke. He's looking much like Jordan, not just with his game, but even a little facially.
yeah. And
But
their team defense was kind of like going into the stratosphere of all time defensive teams. It felt like shutting down Jokic like that for 2 games, and Jamal Murray. They had him looking throwing heat packs on the court. He was so bad.
yeah, but then Jokic does what an MVP does, and he's shown up the last three
Dude.
games. He's looked yesterday. He showed
Oh
basically
my!
every arsenal that he could have in his game. He showed off yesterday.
And
Uh,
he just looks at Rudy Gobert like barbecue chicken, like Shaq would say. He just goes at him every time. He had 40 points and 13 assists, and it's like you're not supposed to be able to do both of those things.
Against the
And
defensive player of the year, by the way.
on 20 shots. So it's like he didn't feel him at all. Like he just
Efficient.
absolutely was going through him. Yeah, I mean when Minnesota was up 2-0, there was some talks of sweep. I was even kind of becoming convinced of it. I was like, because there were certain sequences in that second game, especially where it looked like they had just figured it out and broken all of Denver's offense.
Well, that
And
was the
it's
game
like,
when Denver lost by like 20 plus points, right?
yeah, and the whole thing about Denver is like they get their offense at the most like efficient rate, but then it seemed like going up against this incredible defensive team that still was able to score on the other side, that they just weren't going to be efficient enough to keep up. And they lost the first two at home, and then yeah, they went on the road to Minnesota and just turned it up. They flipped the switch, they turned it up a notch, whatever you want to say. They're defending champs, and Jamal Murray was incredible in one of those games specifically. I think game 3, and yeah, Jokic is just absolutely murdering people. The thing that's kind of that they could not stop talking about the fact that Mike Conley wasn't playing in game 5, and I was like, okay, but like Jesus Christ, how important is it that your 36-year-old point guard plays? Your whole fucking team falls apart if he doesn't
Right.
play. Like, and but also yeah, like maybe that's true because they kind of did. Like Ant was not even really getting involved a lot of the times. He was turning it over. He looked like a 22-year-old for the first time this playoffs. And the Jokic just did not. He'd just been there before and was doing it. And Denver once again looks like they're going to roll. To me, this is the NBA Finals as far as I'm concerned. I think whoever wins this series is going to win it all. I would be surprised if that did not happen. I mean, I've been saying that about Denver the whole time, and only recently did it become clear that like especially after that game too, I started going through it. I was like, okay, Minnesota could win. They've got a lot of depth. They've got a lot of defense. They've got a lot of offense. I tried them out on 2K. I went through that and did the whole model, and it worked. It made sense. I didn't even play well with Anthony Edwards, and we still won. So it was fascinating. I did the same with the Knicks actually, because I'm secretly I've watched so many of these Knicks playoff games. I really enjoy watching them for some reason. Even though we're probably about to play them next. But yeah,
because they're the blue collar team, dude.
dude,
Nose to the
so
hardwood.
gritty.
We're just gonna out hustle you at every.
We're gonna get every offensive rebound. Every offensive rebound. We're just gonna get it. We're gonna grind you out. And I'm like, yeah, that does kind of appeal to me. I like that.
That's
of all these
right there.
Of all these teams in the playoffs and like ranking like which ones like I like watching or enjoy watching their offense, my Celtics team is like maybe like the last team I actually want to watch. It's so fucking frustrating to watch the Celtics, and I actually like feel bad and sick every time I watch them because of how they play. I really don't like how stilted and awkward and your turn, my turn, ISO fucking ball it is. I fucking hate it. And then you watch the Nuggets or and you watch the Nuggets, and it's just like the ball's moving, things are happening. It's just incredible. The Minnesota's all amped up, and they're playing defense. The Knicks fucking try harder than everybody else out there, and so I don't know. It certainly in terms of who I like to watch, the hierarchy is the Celtics are falling down now. Ironically, they're the one team that's moved on from this round now after beating
I was
the
gonna say you're talking pretty down
Cavaliers.
on a team that's already in the Eastern Conference Finals, and as
Who have they played?
Run through. Well, I was about to say they've run through their last two opponents. I think it was
Who haven't had their best players? They played the Heat without Jimmy Butler, and then they played the Cavs, who didn't have Donovan Mitchell the last two games. This last game they closed out. They didn't have Donovan Mitchell or Jarrett Allen or Karis LeVert. It's like, and they were tied at like the end of three quarters. Let's see what's going on. So
they were coaching. They didn't want anybody to get injured. They're all healthy going to the Eastern Conference Finals, except for Kristaps. He'll take some time.
Well, yes, that's the thing as well. The only thing I think that can get them to the level of a Denver, Minnesota is the Kristaps edition. Like with him, I do not think they can beat Denver at all. They would at least kind of make it kind of close with Kristaps. Without Kristaps, it's like they could get swept by Denver. I wouldn't be surprised. They're just so mentally weak, and they don't play well at the end of games, which is very important in the playoffs.
I asked this question because Kristaps obviously wasn't on the court the last few games or whatever. Would it benefit you to still have Marcus Smart? Because weren't the
No,
defensively?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
No.
I only asked it from a defensive standpoint. I know how much of a pest he was on defense.
I think Drew replaces a lot of that and a lot of that, especially defensively. I think Drew Holiday makes up enough of that in the Marcus Smart role. And I love Marcus, I always did, but he also he wouldn't be able to really take a seat back and not be the number one at the end of games. He would just take all the most important shots in the game, which, to be honest, are not. I mean, Tatum's shot selection is pretty horrible at the end of games. Like, he just loves pretending he's Kobe and stepping back from 35 feet, even though he shoots like 30% from three. Their favorite play that they run every time the game gets close is everyone go stand over there. I'm going to stand here and wait till the shot clock's at 8 seconds, and then I'm going to do a step back, and it's going to miss. That's their favorite play, and it's going to destroy them this entire postseason because I can't watch it anymore. I really can't. It's been years. They keep doing it.
ISO ball probably has to be one of my least favorite aspects of basketball.
It can be exciting, but over and over and over again, it's just like
it's
Jesus,
repetitive, and it's exciting when it happens like once every 10 trips down, or like it's an important possession and you do it or whatever. But when it's every single possession down the floor,
it's just like, okay, Tatum's going to do it. Your turn, my turn. Jalen, Tatum, you go one-on-one. I go one-on-one. Let's take a horrible step back. Let's take a random mid-range. Let's fade away. And I'm just sitting there going, go to the rim, Jason Tatum. You are bigger than almost everybody else, and you have touch. Stop taking these horrible step backs. Bring a screen. Get someone involved. Yeah. It's very frustrating. And the thing is, it's been this way for 3+ seasons now. It's the same problem they have every time, and it's why it's becoming more and more difficult to actually think that they'll be able to finish it, because
Mm-hmm.
every time they're in these close situations, which they've had like one close game this whole playoffs because they haven't played anybody, they haven't been battle tested at all, uh, and it's just every time it gets close, they do that and they curl up and they kind of go back to their bad habit. They have the worst habits and they go back to them very consistently anytime the game's close. So if it's the Knicks next round, which at the moment it kind of is
Seems
seeming
likely.
like,
Yeah.
and that would be a enjoyable series at least because I enjoy watching the Knicks. But
Yeah, it's a love and
it's
hate portion for you. You hate watching your team, but you love watching the Knicks.
it's really horrible for me too to say I like watching the New York team more than the Boston team, and so I don't like that at all in my head. But that series will be fun, MSG, Boston, big crowds, big energy. Um, that would be fun. If we play the Pacers, it's going to be another round of like, I just don't really believe that the Pacers. They play well at home when they're doing their thing and then playing at that pace, but they don't travel. Tyrese Halliburton is very, seems like he's timid in some of these playoff games. He'll take like 9 shots in a game, and it's like, what are you doing? You gotta get it going. So, and if it is the Pacers, that would worry me because then it's like, okay, you go through the Heat with nobody, you go through the Cavs with nobody, and then you go through the Pacers, and then you're going to show up and try to play Denver in the finals. And you're going to get blasted by 20 in the first game because you have not even played that level of basketball yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the thing that worries me. But at this point, I still think Denver, Minnesota, whoever wins that series, which it's seeming like Denver's got a lot of momentum now. I think that it's going to be tough for anybody to beat the champion of that series.
Well, the one series we haven't talked about yet right now is Dallas and OKC. And I know you love OKC, the youth they have, SGA, Chet, and what they're doing over there. It's fun basketball, but they are kind of hit a speed bump right now with Luka and Kyrie in Dallas.
Yeah.
I believe the Mavericks just took a 3-2 lead in that series
They
with the
did.
win last night. And
even with Luka kind of playing on one leg, he's still putting up numbers. And Kyrie's actually just playing basketball this season, so it's difficult to deal with.
yeah, it's nice enough to hear like multiple headlines about some weird stuff that he said.
Great. Happy not to talk about it. Yeah. But and they don't even have that much size, but even just the size of Derek Lively, it seems like is affecting OKC a lot, and they just aren't getting
factor this year. I feel like everybody
Yeah.
sort of overlooked Derek Lively. Like, I don't know if I really like that pick for Dallas, and he has been sneaky good for them, consistent for the most part inside.
He's been a better rookie than Scoot Henderson so far, so that's kind of tough. But easier job playing center on a team with other people scoring. But he's been really good in the playoffs, which is impressive for a rookie. But they just SGA doesn't. I mean, SGA feels like is the only guy who's consistently scoring enough for OKC right now. Like Chet kind of comes and goes. Jalen Williams has not had a good series this round. Last round, he was kind of very impressive in some of those games. This round, he's yet to kind of find his footing. And the big thing has been Josh Giddey has been like kind of unplayable.
He's been
it's hurting. It's hurting them a lot. He's not shooting well. They're having to kind of bring in Isaiah Joe, who I like in a lot of these games.
But strange that he's having like this is his third year, right? Giddey's?
Yeah, I think so.
First 2 years, he came in as that rookie and kind of took over for OKC. Last year, he played well too, and then this year, obviously, he had his legal issues at the beginning of the year. But we're 86 games past that now, and you would hope that since that's been, I don't remember what the exact ruling was, whether it was tossed or whatever, but he's not dealing with that right now. Is my point, no. And the fact that he is basically unplayable after being a young star for you the last couple of years is
it's weird because to an extent I get it because it's like he's a non-shooter who needs the ball in his hands to kind of play well, and obviously you want SGA to have the ball as much as possible, so you don't really want him to have the ball. But then how is he having this much success even last year when they basically had the same makeup and the same team? Like, how has that role changed so much, or is it just playoff basketball? I don't know.
Took over more of the ball handling role. Like Giddey was never somebody that was going to put up 35 points, but he was going to give you, he'd get you the triple doubles where it was 15 points, 11 rebounds, 10,
12
assists. Yeah,
do John Hart things.
Yes,
get get some rebounds, get
And
some
so now
assists,
you realize that
shoot if you're
SGA
open.
is kind of your go-to guy to really get your offense going. Where Giddey, as you said, is more facilitator. So like if he's in your point guard role, you're just not expecting him to score a whole bunch of points, but you're dishing it out.
No.
But SGA is the guy who's your playmaker, who's
Yeah,
driving,
and you don't,
getting by defenders, and creating plays.
and he needs
And
the ball.
two,
Yeah.
I was going to say two sort of different games, despite being two very productive players.
Yeah, it does feel like if this is how OKC goes down this playoffs, I think they very strongly start to think, well, I think Josh Giddey doesn't make sense on this team. Like
Yeah,
he's
you move on from
it
him.
becomes a piece, and it'd be great on a lot of other teams potentially. So maybe that's a piece you could move. And ironically, it's kind of the same problem OKC has had since
The
like
big three with
since
KD
the
and
2011 years, where they always have this fifth guy who's a shooting guard who just can't space the floor and it kills them. Like whether it's Thabo Cephalosha or Andre Roberson. Yeah, you like that? Yeah.
Wow, those are names I haven't heard in a bit.
Yeah, these are names burned into my memory as someone who was rooting for the Thunder at that time to beat the Heat and all that. Like, and it was always just this one guy who just, well, or two, who just were useless on the offensive side. Maybe played good defense, but they would always just come down to these situations where they need somebody to space or need someone to make a three, and it would always be that random guy, and he would just clang it off the side. So I don't know if that's Giddey now. It feels like it's happening again, but yeah, if they were able to just get somebody in there who could hit a couple shots next to SGA, because you don't need another guard who's just going to ball handle it, because SGA is going to have the ball 85% of the time, and if he's not having it, I'd rather give it to Jalen Williams or Chet. So I need someone who can just space and shoot. Like a JJ Redick or whatever.
We talked about this a couple episodes ago, but playoffs is always a different beast because teams can actually focus in on your weak points, and it's not like, oh, we got to get on a plane right after this to go fly to Orlando or whatever.
And teams are playing like 20% harder than regular season immediately.
100%. I mean, what is it? Josh Hart has only missed like a couple minutes in the Indiana Pacers series. Like, he's playing almost every single minute. Like, it's a different beast once you get to the playoffs. So, like, I'm not terribly surprised that. Sorry, I had a golfer come up to the fence over here. I'm not terribly surprised that that OKC is somewhat struggling right now. Like, we know they have the talent, but you're finally seeing it hyper focused actually on your team with these young guys. How are they dealing with the adversity, the defense in their face? Like, Luka's, he's been in the league now for a bit, but like, he was a professional over in Europe. Like, he knows how to play the game.
So much experience.
Yeah. And
like,
him and Kyrie. Like, these are all the guys that have gone through the grinder to, obviously Luka hasn't won a title, but Kyrie's been to 4 finals. Like, he won one of them.
Yeah.
He knows how hard it is to get there. And so, like, you're starting to see the youth in somewhat of a way. I'm not saying the youth is their problem, but just being a younger team and not having the playoff experience.
It's the first time they've been tested. This is
a
good thing that you put them in the boiler, you figure out kind of where your weaknesses are and where you can improve. And if this is where OKC goes out, it's going to be good for their future to figure out these things, to figure out what they need to change.
With the boatload of draft picks they have too.
Yeah.
You can easily move on from Giddey and find somebody else in the draft to find that court separator that you're looking for.
Or you could trade Giddey and 2 firsts for like somebody who can be there, like something like that. Again, it would have been nice if they'd made some kind of move like that at the deadline, other than just trading for Gordon Hayward, who's not playing in the series. Like, it would have been helpful, or some kind of size. So I don't know, but
I made a little comment right there. I don't know if you heard it. Not that I needed you to, but like
I pressed a button on my keyboard on accident, so I started panicking. But I think I missed it.
What I was going to say was, like, from what I've heard, this NBA draft is not strong. Like, could you mentioned it? You pair Giddey with maybe a first from this year and something else. Like, it doesn't seem like it's too steep to try to move on and to pick up a decent piece back.
I hate this, but it just came to mind because, ironically, I don't think we're going to talk about the draft lottery that much, but the Hawks ended up winning randomly.
There's a rumor that having the number 1 pick in this draft is like having the ability to draft Tobias Harris. Was one of the
it's been equivalent to, like, this is like the number 8 in a normal draft, kind of is what I've heard as well. So. But I don't know. That made me think, like, okay, well, Trae Young is out there. That's a shooter. I don't really like the idea of him on the Thunder.
I don't like
defensively.
him on that team either.
But just first thought, oh, there's a shooter. There's a guy who can space the floor. Maybe there's some other or one of them. I mean, no. I was going to say DeJounte Murray, but I don't. I want DeJounte Murray to be on a team that doesn't have 2 point guards so that he can succeed. I really, I hated when they traded for him, and I want them to get rid of Trae Young now and go double down on DeJounte.
Get him back. Just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, that would actually be awesome.
It could work out for them, but I don't know if
all he would have to do is play 3-and-D, play defense, but the Clippers are a mess. They're probably going to want something out of that. I mean, they don't have any picks. You can give them a couple picks and Josh Giddey. Maybe they'd be happy with that. I'm kind of intrigued by that.
I was just messing around.
Paul George. Every time I play 2K, I'm like, you can add him to anything. He's just so malleable. I feel like as a player, he's had some hits and misses in the playoffs as far as disappearing, but he wouldn't be asked to be the second guy. He wouldn't really even be asked to be the third guy, I feel like, at that point in his career. He would just be asked to be the guy who makes threes and defends whoever's on the opposite of his position. So that is kind of intriguing to me.
For like a Ray Allen, and I'm not saying his production-wise, but like a 3-point shooter that's just going to stretch the floor. Like, you when he was with the Heat, like, he was not the number one option, obviously. He was number 4, number 5, but like, you dished it to the corner, and that guy won you an NBA title against
that kind of piece. Danny Green on the Spurs, Ray Allen. You just need a 3-and-D guy who actually can hit threes, because usually the OKC 3-and-D guy doesn't do the 3 part as well as the D part. And ideally more the 3 than the D, I would say at this point. You need someone who can space the floor for those other guys, and SGA can kick it out too. But maybe that's Isaiah Joe. I don't know, but probably maybe get an upgrade at that spot. But it's been a fun series. It does kind of feel like the experience of Dallas might weigh out. I still am. Both of these teams don't really match up well or have anybody to guard Jokic, I will say. So that might be a problem. That would Jokic would destroy this Thunder team in the next round.
100%. I just imagine him going up against Chet and just like that's
I think he's as wide as like 2 Chets. So that would immediately be a problem. Derek Lively at least has a little more size, so maybe that would be something.
Predictions then for the other 3 series. I think outside of the Boston series, I think these have all been very entertaining, like back and forth between these teams.
So
let's go with the Timberwolves, Knicks, Pacers. Who are you picking?
The Pacers have. I am leaning Knicks. The Pacers have only played well at home, though. This will be a home game. The thing is, even if the Pacers win this Game 6, there's no chance they win Game 7 at MSG, I feel like, the way they've been traveling in this series. Mm-hmm. So, I would also pick Knicks, and I hope the Knicks win.
Yeah. Dallas and OKC. Did the Young Guns make a comeback, force a Game 7?
I think they definitely can force a Game 7. Is it in OKC now? I think probably.
For
this Game
so.
6. I believe it is. Talking through some of their issues, I don't think they'll move on out of this one. I think the Mavs will end up getting him. It seemed like Luka might be too hurt to kind of do some stuff, but then he still had like a 30-point near triple-double in this last game, so I think he'll do enough, and there's enough kind of little roster issues and youth. It's not even really the size. It's more the youth for OKC, I think, of some guys like Chet and Jalen not quite being able to shine in that moment quite yet. I think Dallas probably moves on there.
Yeah, the next game for them is in OKC, and then it goes.
This is shock. I'm picking all the teams that are leading in the series.
Or excuse me, next one's in Dallas. My apologies. Next one's in Dallas because Game 7 would be in OKC.
Oh, yeah. Dallas. Then I think they could win on the road in Game 7 as well if they need to.
And then you and I believe, are on the same page. Probably Dallas is going to end up closing it out. I have a feeling it might go to that 7th game, but I still think that Denver, is going to pull this one.
It definitely could. Pretty much all those games have been close. They've all been really quality games, come down to the buzzer more or less. So I would think it'd be close. I just think Dallas has 2 chances to get one. So and they can win on the road. I feel like so. I think it'll go that way. Now the finals: Nuggets, Timberwolves. Then obviously all the momentum has gone one direction and then back the other direction. Is it going to flip again? Are they going to force the Game 7 or is
I think over? Minnesota will. Ant's going to show up.
Oh,
Gobert's going to be a little upset with his performance. in the last game against Jokic. They'll force a game 7, but Nuggets are gonna do what Nuggets do, and they're gonna go to
It
Jokic.
was Yeah, it was telling that the best game the Timberwolves played this series was Game 2, where Rudy
Without
Gobert
Gobert.
was not playing.
Yeah,
So something
yeah.
to think about. I just saw a Twitter compilation yesterday of like all the like it was basically just like Jokic has been cooking Gobert for years, and it was just like 7 years of him cooking Gobert since he was like a rookie and he was on the Jazz, and that got me pretty pumped. I think the Nuggets. I'm leaning Nuggets for sure. They could easily win this game 6, and I think if it gets to game 7, I just don't think Minnesota has enough scoring
I
outside
don't
of
think so either. Yeah.
Ant. Like, if they don't have Mike Conley, well, they don't have a chance, I guess. So, but if you're depending on Cat to score okay, as if he's your second or third guy, he makes too many dumb fouls. I feel like to actually be consistently doing it, and your defensive player of the year is getting absolutely cooked. So, I don't. If it was more Nas Reed and Cat on him, maybe they'd have a chance. But I think that if Gobert's out there, they're going to do it. And Jokic just loves going at Gobert. He's not afraid of him at all. So it makes a big difference, ironically, that he's in there. I think they'd have a better chance if he wasn't playing legitimately, just because Jokic personally knows and wants to go at him. And he's had less success against the other guys. But yeah, I think he'll be out there. I'm going Nuggets, though. I mean, I was a little thinking when they were down 0-2, but outside of that, I've
I think everybody
thinking
was.
I've been
I think
thinking the
everybody
Nuggets
just
are going
thought
to
that
win the
Denver
whole
was
thing.
the best team, and the fact they were down 0-2 is just everybody's got to hit
And
the pause button on that.
and yeah, Jamal looked maybe he's kind of hurt, maybe he's still feeling it, and
Brock was bothering
they
him. Yeah.
the defense just looked like Minnesota's defense was just going to be way too good to beat. But maybe they can recapture that. I don't know. It seems like the Denver's kind of took it personally that they dropped those two and are not gonna. They're not like the Celtics where they're just gonna like not show up on a day because they don't feel right or they got out on the wrong side of the bed. Like they're gonna show up and play their brand of basketball to the best of their ability.
Well, from one round ball to the next, let's switch over to the WNBA. They had their draft, and to nobody's surprise, Caitlyn Clark was drafted number 1 overall to the Indiana Fever.
Oh yeah,
I think everybody knew that was going to happen. Everybody knew that for the last. It's rare that you hear in the WNBA draft that you already know who the number 1 pick is going to be.
yeah. Before the college
A
tournament,
year before. Yeah, we're already talking
even
about Cooper
last year.
Flag and whatever on the NBA side for the next year's draft, not this upcoming
Right.
draft.
Forget the next
Yeah,
year.
I've heard it's good too. But it's just funny that it's. I shouldn't say funny, but it's kind of refreshing in a way, I guess, that women's basketball is starting to get that notice of like there's some
Yeah.
top tier players. They finally finished their preseason. Yesterday was their first game of the season for the Indiana Fever. They ended up losing. Caitlyn Clark had 20 points, 3 assists. She did have 10 turnovers, though, and she was a minus 13 on the floor. The
Turnovers.
only reason why I bring that up is because I think people should realize that it is a step up in competition, and as exciting as it is to have her up at that level, and there were some negative comments, I guess you could say, where some of the WNBA players just being like, "Hey, it's not going to be this easy for you."
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, everybody should realize
Competition.
that. Yeah, and that's exactly what's going into it. Obviously, she's kind of the face of women's basketball at the moment. Granted, obviously there are way more high-profile players from the past, but she's who everybody's focusing on right now. So much so that their next game, they're supposed to play the Atlanta Dream in a 3,500 seat stadium. They're not going to go play at the Hawks that can fit 17,000 people in it.
Oh,
Like that's
okay.
the draw that she is bringing to women's basketball right now, and I love it. I think it's great that she's bringing eyes to the sport. It's only going to help them grow their own brand. I'm tired of hearing. I mean, I used to be one of those people where it's like, oh, the NBA is really supporting the WNBA, but like over the last 4 or 5 years, you're really starting to see like you put real resources into it, you're going to get a good product, and I think that's been evident more so in the last 2 years. Like each year, you've significantly seen the viewership numbers go up. Not just the Final Four, but regular season games, conference tournament games. and women's basketball. And so I'm excited to see where these things go. I don't think the Indiana Fever are going to do all that well, despite having Boston and Clark both number one picks the last 2 years. Like the WNBA is in a weird spot where you can have all these draft picks, but majority of them get waived because there's too few teams. Don't have enough roster spots all the way around in the league right now. Like the number one pick in the second round was waived. Like this
Yeah,
sounds
which
stupid,
I mean,
but
it
there's
probably
only
just means that the better teams can get better talent out of just the free agency pool than would be normally there, I would imagine. So maybe it kind of hurts that parity a little bit. I don't know, but I did see a stat that this Caitlyn Clark's first WNBA game was it's like it was 2.1 million viewers, which is more than any WNBA game since like 2004 or something.
that's
So
incredible.
it's immediate big bump. But yeah, it seems like even you're right. They're not going to be immediately competing for championships and stuff because I mean the Las Vegas Aces have just been kind of running the league for. I want to say they've won
They're one
back-to-back
of the newest
champs.
teams. Like
Yes.
they've only been around for a couple of years.
Yeah,
They've already won a title.
Yeah, with AJ Wilson and I think Kelsey Plum, right? They're they've been kind of balling out. I did see some of the other stuff from that draft. The Angel Reese as well as the player from South Carolina.
Cardosa. Yeah.
Both playing on the same team now, right? On Chicago?
Yep, Chicago Sky, baby.
Right? So that's
but Cardosa.
great fucking jerseys. Great jerseys. I really like those Chicago jerseys. Like I almost, you might need one up there or something.
Yeah, no, I literally have one basketball jersey and it's a women's basketball player. So yeah, why not? You know, let's
those
jersey while we're at
those
it.
jerseys are dope. Big fan of those. I don't know. Hopefully it comes to Portland at some point. I know they weren't one of the two expansion teams that were on the list, but they've had a team in the past. I think they're called the Blaze or something in the 90s.
Yep.
And they toured the Moda Center.
Yeah.
Commissioner kind of came over and there was some talks and it didn't quite work out. So maybe it's in the future at some point, but it would be nice to have. There's, lots. There's a history of great women's basketball in Portland, as we know.
Yeah, as we know. Hey, 3 conference titles or tournament conference titles over the last 5 years. But
Gonzaga didn't do that.
Nope, no, they didn't. They did not. You bring up a good point though. The expansion.
Thank you.
So Golden State. Finally, somebody noticed.
Thank you.
The Golden State Warriors were awarded to join with them on the WNBA side, and they announced their team name. They're going to be the Valkyries, which I think is a fun name. Good name for a team, honestly. I don't know how you feel about it.
It's like good parallel for the Warriors, the Valkyries. They're classic female mythology warriors. It's kind of genius. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, no, I think
I'm curious
for them.
The logo's all right.
I don't know if I've seen the logo. I only saw the name. I'll have to take a look at the logo.
It was kind of plainish for my taste. There wasn't like a big Valkyrie. It was kind of looked like the Warriors logo in purple, sort of, but with more like vertical lines or something. I don't know. It was all right. It was okay.
Oh, yeah, I see. It's a play off the Golden State Bridge, though.
Yes, it is.
I got you.
So it's all right, but great name.
And then. Yeah, good name. And then the other, Toronto. They got awarded an expansion team. They're going to start their first season in 2026. So they got a couple of years to really build up that team and that organization to really get things going. Nice. It only shows that the popularity is growing. You're going to be getting more teams. You talked about Portland just being outside of the team or the city that was picked to bring in another team for the WNBA. I don't think they're that far away. It seems like they're almost adding a team a year right now, kind of going forward. They brought in the Aces. Yeah. I want to say that was 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. Actually, my timeline's all messed up. But, they're relatively new. And then you're going to be getting the Valkyrie, and then you're going to get this Toronto team. And
did they have a name?
No. They were just announced to get a team. So I'm pretty sure they're going to be hosting and figuring out a whole new name and having the city vote on it and whatnot.
Is the Golden State team then joining sooner than that Toronto team?
25 next season.
Okay, so it's okay. Gotcha.
So yeah, they're like a year ahead in that process.
Is it weird that they're adding them one by one? Like, does that mess up their?
I think it's a little
conferences?
Weird. Yeah, in that sense, to have even numbers just for the league.
Right.
But I also think that
You can
they're
get
okay
by
with
with
doing
it.
it. You're going to get to the even one the next year. So, like,
Yeah, yeah. It's not
it's
gonna.
a 1 year problem, if you even want to call it that.
Yeah, it's not gonna mess you up too much or anything. Same number of teams making the playoffs and stuff.
Because, I mean, let's.
How many teams are in the WNBA right now? Is it
That's
like
funny.
12?
I believe it's 10.
10?
No, you're right. It
So
is
then
12. It is 12. So you'd be going
12
up to 14
before.
by 2026.
Okay.
And, like, you think probably a nice
Yeah,
happy number would be like 20 teams, 10
at least.
teams,
Yeah.
Eastern
I
and
forget what
Western.
I forget what the NWSL is up to because I kind of see them in similar realms as far as like recent popularity booms, and they've been expanding. It feels like one or two teams this summer, and they were at 8 like 5 years ago, and they're probably up to close to 16 now, maybe after some of those expansion teams join. Um, but yeah, it's you
I
need
got
more.
14. I see 14 teams.
Yeah, so and I think they're planning on adding more. Yeah, it's just better for the league. I mean, for a long time, the Thorns were an incredibly dominant team because there was like 8 teams, and we had like half the U.S. women's national team
Right.
on our roster. So a
Alex
little bit
Morgan,
less
you
good
had
for the
Christine
Thorns.
Sinclair.
Yeah, Tobin Heath, all these people. So
Yep.
yeah, so it's good for the league that it's kind of spreading out a little bit, and it'll help. But
I,
yeah,
I'm
that's
just
great.
excited to get more opportunities for a lot of these players because I mentioned it somewhat in a joking way, but like so many of these players get drafted, and it's so cool and awesome to have your name announced on draft night, and you get to go to training camp and everything else like that. But
Yeah,
most of the time, because of the lack of roster spaces, a lot of these players get cut or waived, and there are other leagues that they can go play in, obviously, but like there is something about playing at home, like
yeah, and
playing in
it's pretty messed up
friends and
that they
family.
just that's purely just a thing of like we don't have enough teams as well. Like
Correct. Yeah.
if you had like sort of a more like eight, that's it's just not a lot of teams to have in a league. Period. So once you get to kind of a more regular number, that kind of issue maybe goes away a little bit more. Um, they don't have like a G League equivalent for WNBA. Obviously, I don't know if that's probably even if that were to be a thing, long ways away, which it probably is not. But but yeah, that kind
There's
of fills out
there's
some of
some
those roster
there,
spots.
there's some other leagues they can do. Like there's Athletes Unlimited, which just started over the last I think 3 or 4 years ago, where
Hmm.
basically the roster changes every week, but there's a new team captain and they draft it, and it's like a point tier system on like whether your team wins and then who's the overall. It's a very confusing league in a way, but
Interesting.
that is an outlet if you don't make a WNBA team. Like you can still play
Gotcha.
stateside and play that way, but a lot of them go and play over in Europe and
Yeah.
play in Australia. Like they make good money doing that. So like
Yeah. More
more
established
power
over
to
there.
you. You do what you got to do, but there's just something about being drafted to say it's your hometown team or whatever, but like actually being able to play for them, not just I was drafted and then I was waived because there are 20 people on the team and they can only keep 12 and there were 11 returners, so it's just like we can only really keep one, and it's just like all right, well,
Yeah, that doesn't make sense from a player perspective or a team perspective. It's like, why am I making this draft pick if I don't have any room? Or, yeah, why? Obviously, if you get drafted, you want to be able to have that mean something and join the team. So, yeah, hopefully with more
like
teams joining and stuff.
you're getting more players drafted than players that are retiring, so you've just like oversaturated the market basically.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you're
yeah,
just
with
not going to
that,
have a lot of turnover.
yeah, this is the best case for expand. They literally need to expand because they just do not, yeah,
They need
have
to.
enough places for these players to go to. So it's great that they are, and they'll be able to kind of keep doing that for a little bit. With it feels like the wave that they're riding off the back of this Caitlyn Clark and all the March Madness and the stars that it was able to create with Angel Reese and some of the different coaches, and yeah, it's getting exciting. So hopefully it'll continue.
That kind of wraps up the whole sports section of what we wanted to talk about today. I do.
Oh no.
What?
I was like, we're doing so good on time, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot we haven't even gotten to the nerd corner and some of the other stuff. So, all right, let's go.
Haven't gotten to the nerd corner. I want to switch it up a little bit. I'm just going
Oh
to read you
yeah.
some headlines.
All right.
I love your reaction, honest reactions. Give it to me right away. A YouTuber runs over pedestrian while streaming under the influence.
Ah.
And she got a light sentence, and this was not her first offense.
Like and
Streaming's
subscribe.
gone too far. You gotta subscribe. Is that what you said?
Can you stream from prison? Interesting.
I don't
That's a
know.
tough one. Probably not.
Yeah, that doesn't
Maybe
look
if
good.
you got one of those bushy sentences.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to get too political over here, but the Republican winning Indiana House primary
Oh boy,
candidate is dead. They're deceased.
dead.
Nobody
Like
decided to let anybody know. So
were they?
they voted in a dead person.
How long was it? Were they dead the whole race, or did they die during the race? Jesus.
Uh,
How? What? Did? What is that? Interesting. I mean, they obviously don't have like a vice president equivalent for those positions, so they just have to do another election, I guess. Sheesh. I mean, I
uh,
just got my like local ballot or whatever. You could. I have no idea if half those people may have already died.
she's been deceased since March. Not a great look.
I don't. Maybe I should be
You're
laughing.
familiar with
Jeez.
real IDs, right? The real ID situation.
Yeah, vaguely.
Okay.
I have one.
Yeah, and
I
yeah,
don't know what it means totally.
I supposedly have one too. Starting in 2025, the real ID deadline for new license is really real this time. The Department of Homeland Security says the
Really
original
real
law was
ID.
passed in 2005. It has been almost 20 years since they
Wow.
enacted that, and they still can't get it right.
Huh?
Kind of messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even
not,
really know what it is.
It's just like supposed to like verify who you are, I guess.
Sure.
And I don't know. A North Carolina woman is hit with charges after a restaurant posts her credit card online after she left it behind. The restaurant
Hit with
decided to
charges.
post the credit card online without blacking out any numbers
Oh
and front and
God.
back. And this woman just got charged nonstop because of the
Oh
restaurant's
God.
mishandling of it. They posted it online to try to get
What?
to the card handler, and yeah, she woke up with some new charges. Not a bright
Jesus.
spot for that restaurant.
That'll teach her. What?
My final one. A Cali woman tries to turn in found marijuana to police. She's turned away. Weed has been legalized in California for over a decade. So, those are just some of the less serious headlines, I guess. Just trying to
Nice.
lighten the mood a little bit. You know?
Yeah, we've been too serious this whole time, you know.
Other things going on, Nerd Corner. We kind of wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about the new hit on Amazon Prime, Fallout.
Yeah.
Ray,
It is a hit.
you played it
Me.
beforehand, right? Or no?
Well, yeah. Let's start with our experience with the games and whatnot before the show. So yeah, I'd only played. I was introduced in Fallout 3, kind of the classic, the big one.
Like the
and
first
then,
game console Fallout, right?
yeah, the Bethesda Elder Scrolls people making it with that kind of engine. Honestly, that's kind of the only one I had played before watching the show is Fallout 3. Played a ton of it as a kid, obviously, front to back almost. And I never ended up playing New Vegas, which was the other big one that I'd heard is even better. My brother played a lot of it, but I didn't end up doing that. And then yeah, there they are. Those are the two biggies. So yeah, Fallout 3 was huge. New Vegas was awesome. And then they brought out Fallout 4 kind of semi-recently, and I didn't end up getting into it until kind of after I watched the show. I jumped in a little bit. But what about you? I know there was a 1 and 2 that were very different games, kind of computer.
Yeah, those were like the first one came out in like
RPGs.
1998. It was a computer game.
I've never played
as good as graphics could be in '98.
No kidding.
I hadn't really played any of these games. The only time I played was like some random mobile game that I played for like a month and then got kind of tired of it. It was basically you're just like a vault dweller and you had to build your vault and all sort of stuff, but like it wasn't really for me. So I never really played the games before. Somewhat knew the concept of Fallout, but just decided to jump right in with it.
Yeah,
we both like Walton, so that was an easy draw.
Walton. It's one of my dogs.
Lucy, I forget the actress's name, but I loved her in Yellow Jackets. That's the first time I was introduced to her.
It's like Emma Purnell or something.
Purnell, yeah, I think it's like
Ellie Purnell, maybe something like that. Yeah,
but she was terrific. I thought she was so funny in that. Like one of my favorite parts about the show is just like it could be serious, but then you got some dialogue in there that really just like switches it up and sort of out of nowhere. And
It's a surprisingly funny show. It has a lot of, I guess, it has a lot of people who made Portlandia.
oh,
Actually,
really?
like Fred Armisen's in there
Oh,
for
yeah, I did see
like a little cameo.
that.
That's a very that whole thing is literally like a Portlandia sketch. But yeah, apparently there's some of the writers and stuff have come on from that, and then obviously Jonathan Nolan, the guy who was kind of producing a lot of Westworld season 1 and whatnot. So it's the combination of those
Christopher's
two.
brother?
Yeah, yeah. He wrote some Dark Knight and some stuff back in the day as well. So, but yeah, it's an interesting combination of those two that actually kind of fits this fucked up kind of fun world
Well,
that is Fallout.
one of my favorite lines is kind of more of a dark humor thing, but it's when the ghoul is like shooting everybody up in the town or whatever. And he's like, "I'd offer you this cherry tomato, but you got a hole in your neck." And they're just like, "Oh, yep, no, that did happen." And it's just like, it's subtle, it's a little thing for me that I like, but like it probably not everybody found it as enjoyable as I did. But like those are the tiny little lines that kind of keep me engaged and into it. And I was very much unfamiliar with some of the creatures in this show.
Yeah, a lot of ghouls, a lot of ghoul talk.
A lot of ghoul talk, yeah.
Clearly, I mean, Goggins plays the ghoul.
The ghoul, yeah. I liked the story of it. Like, I think me not having played the game probably made it, I don't want to say more enjoyable, but usually when you play a game, you're like, oh, I want to see this, and I want to see that, and like, hopefully this is in it. And I heard some people were like, oh, I want to see more Wasteland, but like, with how the first season ended, it seems like you're going to get a lot of Wasteland in the next season. Yeah. It seems like they're probably trying to make it to Vegas to go follow Kyle MacLachlan.
Yes, yeah, and I feel like we got a good amount. If anything else, kind of sometimes when they would cut back to the vault early in the season, I was like, all right, what are we? Yeah. That
though.
It did. It ended up kind of coming back around, especially once he went to like that Vault 31 and found that weird brain robot. It was like
which was like the dude from the original Vault Tech company or whatever.
Yes, yeah. So that stuff and some of the secrets being revealed, but early on, I was like, why are we cutting back to like I go back to the interesting stuff. So, but yeah, it does a pretty great job of world building. Like, I guess speaking from coming from the games, like there aren't too many specific things that I was like looking for. I mean, the big one is the power armor, which I think we get a pretty good amount of, and the whole Brotherhood of Steel, weird religious people, semi-militant.
The relationship between the Brother of Steel and then his like minion, by the way, is sort of fucked up. But like, treats him like total shit.
The Squires or whatever.
Expecting to like, oh, you gotta save me now. It's like
I loved how the Squires had like a giant golf bag full of equipment that they had to like. It was like bigger than them that they would carry around. And I heard one person on a podcast talking about how that was like maybe kind of a joke about like being over encumbered in those kind of games or whatever, that kind of thing. Or like on all those games, you basically have to like manage what you're carrying and throw some things out if it's too much. So you just end up having a companion who you just throw all your shit at so that he can carry it for you. So that literally felt like that. But the oversized golf bags were very comical and hilarious. The whole quest of like, I gotta get this guy's head to this lady is like very fucking weird and morbid, but somehow works. Like
they do a good job of like connecting in the end, and this is probably on me. From just like not realizing it, but I was like, "Why the hell is the head so important?" They would show it in the first episode of the guy like shoots himself in the neck, but you don't know what it is.
So see, I totally forgot that too. So yeah, when they get to the end, she's like pulls like, "No, it's cold fusion in his head." I was just like, "Sure, whatever, all right."
But he does do that in the very first episode.
Makes sense.
He takes the dog or whatever, and then he's just like doing his own experiments. But you see him shoot this glowy thing into the back of his neck.
Interesting.
And that's what ends up being what they find at the end. I don't want to say what it is, even though you just did, but maybe somebody missed it.
Even though maybe I just did.
But the whole like the twist that was basically just the entire last episode.
I loved it.
Like the origin and like
they finally do the big info dump, and it's like actually pretty emotional and stuff, and it's great. I feel like we're kind of jumping around a lot.
I know we are. I know we are. But we're excited about talking about it.
Well, I'll just say the overarching story is follow. We started the vault with Lucy. They do the big nameplates.
Yeah, at the
Who's
very beginning, yeah, yeah.
lived in a vault her whole life. She's gonna get married to somebody in an adjacent vault, and that ends up happening. Turns
Hold on,
out,
hold on.
all right.
It reminded me of another line or whatever. Right before she's about to like leave the vault or whatever, and her cousin confesses the love. He's like, having sex with your cousins is only okay for like so long. It's not a sustainable like thing. I'm just like, what is going on right now?
They, yeah.
It's so bizarre, sort of off the wall.
Yeah. I love how they talk. Everything in their mind too is just like based on like keeping the human race
Race
alive and
alive.
like great. So she's like, yeah, we can do that. It's fun, but that's not a viable solution. So yeah, we follow this vault dweller, and she gets married. Turns out they're raiders, so everything
Mm.
kind of goes sideways. They end up kidnapping her dad, who's Kyle MacLachlan from Twin Peaks and whatnot. Uh, OG dude. And so yeah, the rest of the story is her kind of going above ground and trying to track down her dad and meeting people along the way, whether that's Walt Goggins the Ghoul, and then there's
So
Maximus.
yeah,
Is that the other
Maximus is
guy?
the Brother of Steel guy. Yeah.
Yeah, who boy, did they show that flashback enough for you of him being found in the fridge? I could
Yeah.
have seen it maybe
They
10 or
they
11
show
more
that like
times. I didn't
every
quite get
episode.
it.
Every
Every time he
episode.
had any emotional moment, they're like, he gets out of the fridge and he sees a thing. And I was like, I fucking know. I got it. Maybe, two or three too many times there. But yeah, he was an interesting little character as well. So yeah, they all kind of come together and then split apart and have different little side quests as they're trying to get the head to the lady to trade for her dad, basically. And yeah, different parties coming along and different, yeah, weird creatures along the way. Like, okay, all right.
I have a
But
question.
that's the overarching thing. Now we can jump all over the place, I feel like.
I have a question because
Sure.
I somewhat confused by this. Um, so Walton's a ghoul. It's like
He's
200
a
years old or
ghoul.
whatever.
Ghoul.
Um, the woman at the very end, she is like
Yes.
perfectly normal, but this is supposed to be 200 years in the future. How is she not
Yes.
falling apart? I guess I don't. How is she
Well,
not dead? Like,
I
is
don't
the
think she's a.
radiation supposed to like it's
So I
killing
think
you, but
she's.
like keeps you young? I don't understand. That's my main question. I guess is how is
I
she not?
I think
Yeah.
she's more like Kyle MacLachlan and them. Like it seemed to be maybe she's been unfrozen at some point. I don't think
Okay.
she's been alive the whole time. I don't think she's a ghoul. Maybe there's more story there that they're going to tell in a flashback about how at some
That would
point
be
it went sideways and she ended up freezing herself to come out 200 years later and try to fix it. I don't know. That was my kind of guess.
because like originally you don't hear about it like in the show right away, but like when Maximus is like, "Oh, I was alive for the bombing," and I was like, "So you were alive in the '50s?" But you
Yeah.
find out later that his storyline is a little bit different, but like still doesn't explain the woman at the very end though. I get what you're saying. Maybe she froze herself, whatever. But like,
If she's in the flashbacks, you're
yeah,
right. And she's not a ghoul like Goggins. She's more like I have to assume it's something like what Kyle MacLachlan did, where he was frozen and got out. But they don't. They don't really say. They don't. So I don't know. Maybe not. It's hard to tell. Uh, so yeah, that is a bit of a weird one, and the timeline of it as well. I was kind of trying to figure out because I think originally I maybe had it a little wrong with what the Fallout timeline was. Like I just kind of assumed the bombs all dropped in 1950, and that's why we had that culture, and then everything happened then. But that's not
yeah, I think it
exactly
was
how
like
it
mid.
actually happened.
Oh, I thought it was
It
like mid
was
'50s, and then
it.
kind
It
of
sound. It, I think it basically it's sort of an alternate timeline starting at uh, right after like the bombs drop in World War II, basically. Like that's kind of how it all opens, and they're like, and we started using nuclear energy, and we
yeah,
started
that
doing
was kind of a
this.
cool. Yeah, I did like
So
that.
it kind of splits off there, and they're still kind of vibing off of that 1950s American culture for another 100 years, it seems like, and then the bombs drop in I don't know
That nuke
20.
place. Yeah.
Well, I don't know when all the big bombs drop. I know this. It sounded like that the Shady Acres thing or Shady Sands or something
Yeah,
was like 2077, I think. So
yeah,
maybe all the
that was like over a
but
hundred
that
years
was
after. Yeah,
so yeah, maybe in like 2000 or something or late 90s or 80s, all the big bombs drop and everyone goes under or everyone
you
tries to
thought it was the
survive.
'80s?
Well, if it's 100 years before 2077,
I'm saying at least 100 years. I thought the bombs were
I don't
dropping
know.
between like 55 and 65, somewhere in there. Because
Maybe,
all the music points to
probably.
that like
Well,
that's one of the
there's
reasons.
part.
One of the things I do
There's
like about this show is the music and everything else like that, minus a couple songs.
yeah.
Like all of it is basically like 50s, early
Well,
60s
there's an
music.
element of it. There's an element of
Look
it
at
that
the
is like.
TVs, like the
I know, I
TVs.
know. I'm saying there's an element of it that is like once they changed nuclear energy, they stopped like they only used that to develop certain parts, and like some of their culture kind of stood still, and like so they
Okay,
they
so it
stopped
still looked like
investing in
50s and
making
60s, but you could have been in the 80s, is what you're saying.
like nobody was making music basically from that point. Everyone started making nuclear powered robots with people's voices that could cut your hedges and stuff, and so the culture kind of got stuck there for like 50 years while we were going in this new direction of like atomic energy. That's kind of some of the vibe, but yeah, there's still some timeline stuff I'm a little murky on as far as that. But yeah, all the big bombs drop is the point. Everything gets bad, and then a while later, people try to make a civilization again with that Shady Sands place, and then we later find out why that ends up getting bombed again. Uh, yeah,
Pretty far.
that all coming back and tying together, and Lucy having actually kind of been there and hearing the story from Maximus, that all like kind of worked very well for me and was interesting. But the whole last episode, all the info dump stuff, I thought was like kind of riveting. It was great.
So, no, I'm with you 100%. I mean, I
The
was.
only weird thing was like when that ghoul turned out to be her mom. I was like, all right, sure. like like when they're doing the whole info dump and the dad's in the cage and the lady's there and Lucy's there and there's that like little zombie ghoul
No,
and
I,
it's
I
like
know what
that.
you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. But what
Okay,
are
okay.
you confused about?
I was just like, oh, that's literally her mom. Like, why did she keep her around? Like, I heard one explanation that is basically like maybe there was a bit of a romantic relationship there between her mom and the Moldaver lady, so maybe that's why she kept her around. I don't know why else she would keep her
I
around.
didn't get a romantic relationship from that. I felt like that was more of a symbol of what once was and what Vaultec had done to somebody that was
Yeah,
looking
it felt
out
yeah.
for the future, and like they decided to kill her off because it didn't fit their plan. Like
No,
Vaultec.
yeah, it was probably just a very TV thing to have the ghoul literally there, who they could then reveal was the mom, who then they could shoot in the head or whatever. But to me, it was just like why are you keeping her around? Like, wouldn't you want to put her, let her have peace or something? Or I don't know. So that was
I
a
don't know
little
why
bit
the hell did
strange.
that old dude keep all those zombies in the barn in Walking Dead? I don't know. He all thought they had souls still and whatnot.
They were just
It
sick.
was the
Yeah,
best friend though. Like those two were best friends. She said that multiple times, and so
best friends. Maybe a little bit more.
if that's what you want to infer, then by
Maybe
all
a
means.
little bit more.
But
We'll see. It was exciting because they clearly have more story to tell than they
100%.
even did in season one. Because they're having the whole flashbacks with Walton Goggins and him kind of figured out how this whole thing started and how much his wife was involved and whatnot.
Yeah, I was about to say that the reveal of his significant other, and I did not see that coming.
Yeah,
Pretty
tough.
cold blooded.
And yeah, what did you think of the whole idea of like basically all these vaults being like fucked up experiments that people are just putting on? Like that was always one of the fascinating things in the games. You'd walk in, you'd stumble across a vault in the wasteland, and everything had gone horribly sideways. And you just read about it in the logs, and everyone was like so wildly different.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it when you start the first vault with like all scientists. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, all these minds want to experiment and try different things.
That's what they want to find out. Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
I'm not terribly surprised by it, but it is kind of, well, it's you don't know how many vaults there are. It could be infinite, but that's a fuck ton of experiments that you could
Yeah.
be doing. In fact, that Lucy was like, "Oh, we don't get experimented on." I was like, "You're definitely getting experimented on." They didn't necessarily say what it was.
I think it seemed like theirs was maybe a slightly more benevolent experiment of like, what if we just made like the idyllic,
blindly follow.
1950s society of trying to repopulate the planet and everyone's nice and we have cornfields and blah blah blah. So maybe that was a bit of a tamer one. One that I heard about recently on a podcast was which I thought was fascinating was a guy came across a vault in one of the games, and everybody there was dead. And basically, the thing that he found out was the only thing that they did in this vault was you would randomly be assigned either a red team or blue team. That's all that they did, and everybody ended up killing each other just based off of that. So
Okay.
interesting, kind of little human trials things that are like, well, that I could see how that would happen. It just was human psychology. If you were in a bunker underground and you were told you were separated, and then eventually that would come to a head, everybody would be gone. So it's stuff like that that's kind of fascinating.
Figure out what happened in Vault 32? Like, did we get a real answer on that one? I don't remember hearing because the people were going after each other. So like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I never heard like an actual response. Like it was just cleaned up, and then the brother was just like, "You did a good job cleaning it up."
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was like.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if like raiders actually got in there and fucked them up, or if they were part of some other kind of side experiment that just made everybody go crazy and kill each other.
I would say it's more the experiment side because the brother went in there. Like, they haven't bred a life form in 2 years, so like it couldn't have been the raiders. The raiders had just gotten there, from what they had said.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was like on the wall. It's like, we know what you did, or we know what you're doing. Basically, when they were trying to claw their way to Vault 31, I think is what it was at the time. But like,
yeah, I don't know if they like found out that they
were in
31 was kind of controlling everything, and they were trying to get there. Or... Yeah, but it's interesting. Maybe there's more story there.
That's not like a huge storyline or a plot line or whatever. Like, you don't need to know what happens at the end of that. You just know that everybody's dead.
I did clock like when everything was cleaned up when they were walking through. I was like, how the fuck did they clean all this up? Like I thought, because at that point I still thought 31 was like teaming with people who they could like call over and do it, but they end up going there and it's just one robot and people in cryos. So did the overseer lady who got appointed do all of that? Does she have a couple other people?
There's multiple people from Vault 31 that are in Vault 33.
I guess that's true. That other lady with the eye patch is one of them. And
so like they would know to go over there. They know what's up.
They all get together on a Tuesday night and clean up. Okay.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Interesting.
But I wasn't super involved in what they wanted to talk about in the Vault until the brother went into Vault 32. And
yeah.
Okay, so there is a story to sort of tell here now.
Yeah, same.
And so that definitely opened some things up. Obviously, it's very controlled because you're in a vault and whatnot, so only so much can happen. But like, there was some intriguing storylines to it all. Like him and his cousin, I guess, the one that was in love with Lucy. Like, those two basically parting ways for the most part. Like because of how everything's kind of unwinding down there because of eye patch lady and whatnot. And, like that I understand what the eye patch lady did, but that was such a bizarre situation between those two. But there's so much more story to tell with this show. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait over a year because that's just how television is. But I'm excited to see what they can do going forward with it, because it seems like they can do just about anything, because they didn't stick to one game or anything like that. It seems like it's based on the world, obviously, but you don't have to be like, oh, this person did this in the game, and we got to make sure we get that in there.
Yeah, they're very much doing their own thing. It's just they're pulling from the world. It's not like Last of Us, where it's like, this is it, A to B, this is the story. Even Last of Us Season 2, which we're seeing...
were the exact same as the video game.
It's like beat for beat. It's like, even this Last of Us Season 2, if you've played the second game, like, pretty sure we know where they're going with this. So I doubt they're going to deviate from that. So, it's interesting to have this where it's just pulling pieces from it, but able to tell their own story. And I mean, Lucy's story overarching is basically Fallout 3's kind of premise. You start as a vault dweller, your dad gets kidnapped, and you go above ground to find him. But outside of that, it's very different.
Spoilers, man. I haven't gotten to 3 yet.
That's the premise. I spoiled the first 15 minutes of it, I don't think. So, but it's a great game. So yeah, I very much enjoyed the show. Sounds like you did as well. Did you end up going into the... I played a little bit of Fallout 4 afterwards just to get a little bit of a fix, and it didn't the way they set that one up didn't quite do it for me because they gave me power armor immediately, and then I felt like I didn't earn it, and then I ran out of ammo fighting ghouls, and I was like, well, maybe I'm done here. So
Yeah,
what did you
so
do?
I had Fallout 3 already. I didn't realize that.
Great
Like my
mix. Yeah,
brother had given it to me, and it was just like in my game stack, and I just hadn't gotten to it yet. Um,
great game. So,
first of all, I watched the show and I was like, oh, I was buy Fallout 4. It was like $6 on eBay or whatever. Bought
oh
that,
yeah,
and then same thing with New Vegas and Fallout
yeah.
3. Not realizing I had Fallout 3 already, so I like bought those. Um, but I've only played part of the beginning of Fallout 4 at the moment. But I'm with
Gotcha.
you because like you get the armor almost immediately. Like it's like one of the first tasks that you do.
The
Uh,
first town you go into, they're like, here it is, and I was like, fuck, man. Like that. I think three is probably. I mean, three is the only one I played, so of course I would say that. But three does the best job, I think, of just starting you because it starts you in the vault, and then there's some more interest. You're in like DC, Washington DC or something, so there's some more interesting iconography and stuff in there, and then it kind of builds up to some other those other things. The one I would like to play is New Vegas. I've heard that's kind of the best one. It's just I don't really have access to it with the new consoles. Ironically, like it's literally not there. The thing that astonishes me is that they didn't think about this. They came out with the show, and it was a huge hit, and they
but
had
nobody thought
no
about
game
remastering the
to.
games.
They had no game to pair with it. They had nothing to sell with it. They and the numbers have shown like there's like millions of people playing Fallout 4 and playing Fallout 76, which is like kind of their live service version. So there was
I heard not great
a
things about that
demand
one.
there. I've heard there was a horrible launch, so I've never ended up trying it. But maybe it's fine now after they patched it for 5 years. But it was really really bad to start, from what I heard. Like it barely worked. So I haven't never tried it. But yeah, there's clearly people wanted to go in on this world, and they just the fact that they didn't have like a here's Fallout New Vegas remaster, Fallout 3, Fallout 5. Like they didn't have anything. I think some people at Microsoft and stuff were probably like, like 60 million people or whatever watched our show. They didn't want to go play the games, and they don't have access to any new games we can sell them. What the hell are
It's
we doing here?
it's
Put them in
all lining
Fortnite at
up for a
least.
new game for season 2 to line up together.
It would if they started racing right now, they could maybe make it. It's similar kind of. Well, actually, it probably
Maybe they
takes
have
a little
something in the
longer to
works. We
make
just
a
don't know it yet.
game.
You know,
You'd hope or something. This is so what they did with Fallout 3 originally was they basically just tweaked the Oblivion uh, game that they had, that whole engine, and just made it into a Fallout world. So they just came out with Starfield, which ironically people didn't really vibe with that much, me included. But maybe you could at least take that engine and just kind of reskin it and get you started, cut a year off the time. So there might be something there, but yeah, I don't even know if it would be a Bethesda game again or what. But a bit of a missed opportunity from the gaming side of things, I will say. But not from the show. Great show, really enjoyed it. I can't wait for more. Feels like Walton Goggins is getting some juice out of this too that he hasn't really had before, which is crazy to me because he's been great in so many things. But if more people find Walton Goggins and go watch Justified and stuff, that's great by me.
I like him in Vice Principals. I find him very funny in that show.
Yeah, also great in Righteous Gemstones too. Hilarious as Baby Billy.
Yeah,
Baby Billy's Bible bumpers or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yes,
fantastic.
yeah.
He's in The Shield back in the day too for a bunch of seasons.
That's an old one.
I started watching a little bit of that a couple of months ago or something. There's just a lot.
You
It's
just
hard to
really
go
want to
back
watch
and
the thing,
it's hard.
you know?
Well, I was in the mood. I'd want to rewatch Justified. And I was like, I need more Goggins. I need more like crime drama. It's just hard to rewatch 6 seasons of 20 episodes. Like it just fucking hell. It does take a lot. So I
Old
fell
school
off of that
TV,
at some point.
Old school TV. Yeah, when you would have 20, 24 episodes in a season.
Yeah, it's
Now
yeah,
you're getting 10
saying
to 12, if that.
it's a little different of a prospect to be like I'm going to rewatch 24 versus like I'm going to even if I was like I'm going to rewatch Succession and be like four seasons of 10 episodes and do it in 2 weeks. 24 would take me all
It's like
summer.
me trying to rewatch the X-Files. Especially those
Yeah.
like 8 years. They're all 24 to 26 episodes, all 45 minutes.
Yeah, especially those where it's like there's less overarching plot in X Files, I guess, but there's in all those seasons there's a lot of like what of this of the week, whatever, blah blah blah.
Monster of the week. Yeah.
You're not moving the plot forward as much, so if you get stuck into those ruts and you're waiting for the plot to move forward, and you're just kind of hanging out. That can be kind of tough, but yeah, fantastic show. Really enjoyed it. Probably almost at the boys level as far as best things I've seen on Amazon. Well, and Fleabag's way up there too for me. So
yeah, I was gonna say boys is up there for me. Yeah, I don't know. For Amazon Prime, I would say I'm very happy with that show. I don't feel like they've put out great content as a stream.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith was really good too. The Childish Gambino show, that's what I call it.
For second place, Mr. and Mrs. Swift, and I was like, oh, really now? I know you said
this last NFL, the Super Bowl, it was great.
Anything else you want to talk about on this episode, boss man?
No. That's it. Let's cut it under 2 hours here, all we can.
Yeah, all the people will love it for sure. That's Ray Bradley. I'm Brian Slank. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Sportslandia, brought to you by the Next Professional Athlete platform.
There it is.
Look forward to seeing you next week. Stay safe.
I'll try to have a better backdrop next time.